Hi, Peter. I connected with Peter very recently. It was actually through a client that we are delivering some services at. And then they said, oh, yeah, we're using this tool. I said, what is it? Agile Hive. I said, I've never heard of it. What is it? So I looked it up. I connected with Peter and I said, hey, Peter, by the way, we're running this conference. It would also be good if you can share what Agile Hive is about. And he did one better. He said, we can show you both Agile Hive and also we Jira Align. So we can present that to people and people can also see and have some knowledge of both tools. Of course, we've spoken a lot about what it is all about people. And yes, of course, we're not changing that. It is about people, but we also need tools to help us make the work that we need happen. I'm going to hand over to Peter. Peter is based in Germany, but he's going to tell you more about who he is and what he does. All yours. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's very interested in a bit about tooling. As Nader already said, we're an Atlassian partner, so I can show you Atlassian Tools. I will share my screen with you. I hope this will work fine. This is just our website. A few words about Seibert Media. We're Germany-based, large Atlassian partner, and we have our own tools that we develop. And one of them is Agile Hive. That's how we got to know each other. And we're also, as an Atlassian partner, we're Jira aligned partners. So if you're familiar with the SAFe framework and you're familiar with the use of Jira, sooner or later, you probably run into Jira Align and maybe even into Agile Hive. Since it's about leadership and leadership needs to be a bit different in times where you need to cope with change and companies want to become more agile in order to cope with change and react quickly. Of course, leadership needs to lead the way. And as soon as it comes to scaled agile, especially when you have agile teams, you have cross-functional teams that develop value or that gain value all by themselves, self-organized. Of course, that's great. But with the solutions that we need nowadays, scaling comes into play. And of course, that gets a bit more complicated because now we all know it's about people. As Nader said, it's about people and their collaboration. But when it comes to aligning hundreds or even thousands of people, well, you're quite lost without the proper tools. So we think agile and tooling, especially in the scaled context, actually two sides of the very same coin. And we would like to look at both at the same time. And Scaled Agile says you need to align strategy with execution. We also think that you need to align your methodology with your tooling and evolve both at the same time, unless you want to lose a bit of speed. Of course, you don't want to do that. That's the approach that we have with the Scaling Agile Society, where we work as a tooling company closely together with methodology consultants. Having said this about Scaled Agile, you probably know the SAFe framework yourself. It's all about leadership that needs to lead the change, the transformation. So there's an entire article and an idea behind being agile leadership needing to take place in the scaled context. Taking a look at that, of course, there's a few dimensions involved since leadership is not anything singular. Principles, mindset, very important, and also leading by example. Decentralized decision-making, I think, is one of the most important things in order to become quick and swift. You need a lot of people being able to make decisions. And in order to do that, they need to know what the best decision in the interest of their company would be. So transparency and alignment, core values of SAFe, are very important that you can enable with the proper tooling. Let's talk a bit about alignment of strategy and execution and the transparency needed in order to do that. When you take a look at the SAFe framework in its entirety and this full SAFe configuration, it's of course a bit tricky because it by itself is quite complex. Jira is also quite complex. And when two complex parts collide, it doesn't necessarily get easier. There needs to be a few things that need to be done in order to be able to achieve the alignment from the portfolio or the enterprise level through the portfolios, maybe large solutions down to the programs and the teams involved. Jira is a very well-known tool and it's more or less a team tool. So when you try to run a SAFe in Jira and try to get the things done, you might run into a few challenges. Most obvious is that it doesn't provide the hierarchical layers that you need to have a proper SAFe configuration. Artifacts might be missing. The names are different, which doesn't really help for, let's say, for example, management buy-in. The program increments is one of the heartbeat of the SAFe environment. It's not right there. You can have workarounds that help you, but the PI cadence is not built into Jira. Also, you have the latest shortest job first as an objective prioritization means that is being used in SAFe is not right there in Jira. Dependencies aren't handled the way you would probably like to see them. There's a few boards missing, reports missing, and whatever you do when you try to handle SAFe in Jira, it ends up in extensive configuration. Also, there needs to be a lot of methodological support, documentation to be done, content collaboration, and usually every Jira admin with an agile Agile background would say, yeah, that's really important, but please don't do that in my Jira. That's just not what Jira is meant for. It's a process management tool and not meant for the collaboration of it or in content. Well, in order to cope with these challenges, there is a few tools that you can use. Today, I would like to show you two of them. One being Jira Align, which comes from Atlassian. They have acquired Agile and we as Seibert Media, we have developed our own little tool, Agile Hive, for safe in Jira. And as Seibert Media, we can provide both of them. They do overlap in their overall use case, but they're very different in their approach. And this is something I would like to show you today, so you get an idea what the difference is between Jira Align and Agile Hive and what both tools are all about. Let's start with Jira Align. It says, unlock the agility of your enterprise. Jira Align is a standalone solution that connects to your team tools, aka Jira, or even Jira. So it's really built for large scaling, for complex environments where you can even connect into a multitude of team tools if necessary. So it's a platform for enterprise agility, and it takes into account all the levels that we've just talked about. And as I said, it connects to a team tool. It is built, and that's one large difference to Agile Hive, it is built top down. So it's really coming from the strategy and wants to link strategy to execution, while the execution, most of it takes place in the Jira instance, where all the teams, the majority of teams work, the majority of people involved. And it has 4 dimensions that it covers: people with the dimensions or the levels that we talked about, their work and work items. Time is really important since we're in an iterative and incremental approach with Agile. And of course, outcomes, since everything is outcome driven and we want to create value, that's a really important factor. And when you're familiar with Jira, you see Jira on the left-hand side and Jira Align on the right-hand side, and you see these artifacts, how they connect. So the idea is, after all, that the teams still work in their Jira, their work get rolled up and transferred over to Jira Align, and management can work with that data in Jira Align. They can do all their planning and everything in Jira Align. So there's an interconnection on the program level where program management works a bit in both tools, but anything that is more management driven takes place in Jira Align, and everything that's more execution driven by the teams is more in Jira. Let's take a quick look into Jira Align. Of course, it's a very complex software. Today, we can just cover a very basic overview, and I can show you a few things. The same is true for Agile Hive. I'm very happy to talk to you in person, so you can book demos or just chats with us. It's really just a brief overview. And I would like to do that in the system itself. I'm in a Jira Align instance here. This is the starting page, and you can have a lot of views already here, so it's easy to jump from here into your work. Jira Align has one very cool feature, I think. When you have a large environment and you're looking at time and portfolios, you have this meta navigation up here. So you can filter down your entire information to the portfolio or the pieces of work that you would like to look at. You define which parts of the enterprise you would like to look at. For example, one portfolio, or even within this portfolio into certain teams or programs. So I filtered down to a certain time frame also, and one portfolio. And when you're on the enterprise level, you can, again, top down, define your vision for that portfolio. For example, for one strategic snapshot, which is a time period, a fiscal year, or whatever you would like to have, you can define the vision and mission of that portfolio. And as you see here, you can break it down into smaller chunks of work and especially of objectives. So you can bring that down to different dimensions and even work with OKR, objectives and key results, in order to have your objectives always in sight and break them down for the dimensions that are necessary for you in your organization. So you can have an objective tree that shows you step by step how you've broken down your objectives into the smaller goals, let's say for a quarter, for example, but that's really up to you. And you can bring it all the way down to the team level. Jira Align is cloud-driven. It's a cloud solution, but it's also in a multi-tenant cloud. It's the normal deployment of Jira Align, but you can also have it in a single-tenant cloud. Data residency and all of that is taken care of. And if you're really in a regulated environment, it's also possible to obtain Jira Align on-premise. That's also very important to know, but it's very cloud-driven. So a lot of people work on that constantly, and there's new releases every few weeks. After taking a look into the enterprise level, you have broken down your objectives from missioning and visioning tooling, let's take a look down to the portfolio, or one of the portfolios that you could manage here. The portfolio, as you see, there's another menu navigation that you can use. The portfolio view, you can, for example, choose the portfolio room. Every level that you have, let's say the portfolio, solution, and the program levels, they have their own rooms. The portfolio room, for example, is a combination of views and reports that help you track your progress and see where you're at the moment with your portfolio. It's quite cool to have everything here, and you see there's a few more tabs. So what's really awesome in Jira Align is that you can do pretty much everything that is needed by management, including financials. As you see, there's a financial tab here, resources tab, so you can do some basic resource management. I don't want to overdo that in the Agile context, but of course it's necessary to know where resources are, and you can track on the execution of your portfolio. Taking a look into the financials, there's, for example, a link to an investment versus spend view. That's really cool to have. You see what has been planned, and also you see what the estimate was and what the actual spend at any given time would be. You can see that there's a lot of different views that you can use in order to track your financials. You can even distinguish between CAPEX and OPEX. So it's really a detailed piece of work. The portfolio room is give you an overview, but what's also really important is to take a look at the initiatives on the portfolio level. In the SAFe context, it would be the portfolio epics. Jira Align doesn't really care which methodology or framework you're using. So if you want to do less or Spotify, Jira Align really supports anything out there. Now, the portfolio epics are also very important, since that's the large initiatives that you would like to track usually. And you can have a backlog. For Agile, we are using a backlog that can lead to a board, always with the restraints of what I've chosen in the top navigation here. I can have a look at my portfolio, and in this case, these PIs that I've chosen. You can even save these views. So if you're a program manager, a product manager, you can save your views for your program. If you're on portfolio level, you can save your views and exchange them with others. So it's really easy to find your way to the proper configurations and to the views that you would like to have. Here we have the epic overview for what I filtered down to, and you see all the epics that have been identified and defined. Then you can, of course, take a look with a sidebar that slides into each item that you want to take a closer look at. For example, in this case, this epic here, you can open this up and get a quick overview of what it's all about, the PIs that it's being handled in. You can have a look at the value. There's a value score that you can manage. You can either use the latest shortest job first in order to manage your value ideas, or you can use this built-in solution to give it a score, build up on top of that, and have a lot of more views right from that sidebar. Spend is, of course, also very important. In this case, there's no data in it, but as you see, you can follow up on the actual money spent, forecast, and so on right in that sidebar. So it's really handy to have a quick look. And as you see, you can even have a drill down of these epics into smaller pieces and see which items underneath pay into this epic. In this case, for example, these 3 features on the program level pay into this epic that we're taking a look here. Then one also very handy tool on the program level, for example, it's come from there, is on the arts. Of course, you have the ability to use or to plan your chunks of work, whether it being portfolio epics or program features, on a roadmap. Here you have a basic view over all of your epics. You can drill down to your features, and you can also change how you would like to see the pieces of work. In this case, it's feature by epics. We see the epics here. We can drill down and see again which features pay into the fulfillment of these epics. And you see their health. This is red. Usually red doesn't mean that it's good, that it's at risk. So there might be a problem that teams are lagging behind compared to the initial plan. Hopefully you have a lot of green ones telling you that everything should be in order up to now. That's the roadmap, where you can also track progress. You can have milestones that you see here. You see the PIs involved. And again, you can drill down to pretty much anything that you would like to take a look at. Another very important issue when it comes to leading the safe transformation, since we're talking about scaling Agile, where you have teams that depend on each other's work, the dependencies. Dependencies are managed within Jira Align. You can give any work item that is to be released or has a value, like a feature or a capability or a portfolio epic. You can set significant dependencies, identify them, and have them listed, for example, team by team. So in this case, again, what we filtered down to here, which dependencies and how many dependencies are there from one team to another involved in this situation here. there's multiple views that you can use. One which I find very attractive is the wheel view. It takes a while here because we're looking at a long time period. So there's a lot of dependencies, as you see. In this case, team by team, how they are connected with dependencies. And you can look at each individual team, clicking on the team name, and it will give you the information on the dependencies that have been identified, and you can keep track of them. So there's non-committed ones. There's some that are committed. 61% in this case are already done. But it's really a great tool to follow up on dependencies that might compromise the delivery of value. I leave it here with Jira Align. I hope you get at least an idea of what it does and what it is. And go to the next slide here and move over to Agile Hive. Agile Hive has a totally different approach. It comes bottom up. We've built it bottom up. We wanted to make sure, because it's an app for Jira, it's in your Jira instance that you're using, and it helps the teams, especially, so the majority of people involved in the SAFe context, to do their maybe new work according to SAFe in a better way, and to make it easier for the entire organization to switch to SAFe and do that step by step. That's why we say it's the easiest way to implement SAFe in Jira. And we're only about SAFe. So not saying that it might not be possible to use other frameworks, but they should be quite close to the SAFe environment. Let's take a look at Agile Hive. It's a Jira app. This is the administration in the background. You don't have to administer Jira to understand it. I just want to show you how we cope with some of the challenges that we've talked about before. In this case, the project hierarchies is the centerpiece of Agile Hive. It's administration. And as you see, when you're familiar with the same framework that we've taken a look at before, you have the layers that you need in the SAFe context, depending on your SAFe configuration in the organization. You can have up to 4 layers, up to the portfolio level. And if you're familiar with Jira, that it's quite hard to have the hierarchy built up, as we've said before. And we solve that by having a project hierarchy. That means that the portfolio, each in this case solution trains, the programs, and all the teams, they're all individual Jira projects, giving you full flexibility over the issue types that you might want to have on these levels. Once you have built this hierarchy, everything else is quite automated. So it's really easy to implement compared to, or taking into account how complex the use case is. One thing that's automated is the navigation. It represents exactly what you've built underneath. That means that everyone in a SAFe context working in Jira can find their way to work quite easily. Let's, for example, say I was a developer in a team called Team Animation that is working in the Agile Release Train Wiesbaden unit. I can use that navigation and I end up in the current team report of the current PI. So we're in PI 3 here at the moment, and we see a progress of the team. So we see the teammates. It is all about collaboration. We want to make sure that you know who to talk to. We have an overall progress, a few metrics that are also there out of the box. We see a sprint by sprint view of that PI that we're looking at. And on the left-hand corner, on the bottom, we see the team PI objectives. They're really important and SAFe. This is where you track the business value. The teams create their PI objectives during the PI planning, and a business owner should come along and give them an idea of how valuable each of these objectives is. And after each system demo, since we're talking about sprints inside the PIs, whenever there was a system demo and there was value achieved, there's an actual value put into the objective. This is where this business value comes from. And you can keep track on that really important measure. There's a risk management on team level also, objectives and risks. Now, most importantly, Agile Hive is for the teams to do their work with Jira and pretty much with everything they know from Jira. So there is nothing special after all that Agile Hive adds to the game. We're all talking about Jira issues, fields, workflows, links, and stuff like that. There's quite little training needed to implement Agile Hive and to work with Agile Hive. There's just a few helpful views and tools. One of them is the team breakout board. During PI planning, there's 2 breakout sessions where the teams do their work as a team and plan their work. For example, they can plan their capacity sprint by sprint, knowing their velocity and known absences. Take that into account. They just put them into as story points, put this number into this box here. Next thing that they would do is they would plan the features that they need to work on, which have been identified by product management and prepared by product management. They can filter down to the program backlog, which should hold these features that they should plan for the next PI, where product management hopes that they will get delivered. And they can just drag and drop these features that they need to work on into their board. They appear as a bluish swim lane, indicating that this feature now has been planned by Team Animation. If there is multiple teams that have decided to work on a feature, which is quite standard in Scaled Agile, you see that there's this little icon here that tells you that there's one other team that has already planned work towards that feature. Next thing, when you've decided on the features that you need to work on, usually you break them down into stories. As you see, you can do that inline, plan that, and then they appear as these stories here underneath each of the features, and they will be linked automatically to these features in a hierarchical manner. So the data aggregation for reporting is also right there. Of course, if you have a team backlog in Jira where you have work identified already and prepared already, you also find that in this backlog view and issues of the team, again, with quick filters to easily filter it down to stories. And now you can just drag and drop the prepared work items into your timeline of this PI and plan it, for example, into iteration here and have it planned and linked to the correct feature. If you need to replan anything, you can just do that by dragging and dropping. Last but not least, on team level, now you would go ahead and set your dependencies between the teams. So you can do that, as you see, and visualize them by these lines. In this case, there's one dependency set here within one team. So that is also possible. More importantly, of course, between teams. The dependencies are visualized with lines. They can be green. In this case, that means that this story here, or this piece of work, whatever it is, obviously needs this story to be done in order to be completed. So since the planning is in the right order, this comes first, the line is green. If both of the items were planned in the same iteration or same sprint, which is the same thing, it's yellow, meaning that could work out, but you better have a close look at it. If the pieces of work are planned in the wrong order, is red. Now, this is really important when you collaborate with other teams and you work together with other teams on features. When I scroll down, since I'm in the board of one team called animation, I can scroll down and I see the other teams of my Agile release train also and their current planning status. When I open, for example, this board up of the 3D artists team, I can now see their current planning status and see the dependencies that have been set, which are just normal links in between Jira issues. And now I can collaborate with another team to get rid of these dependencies because I do not want any red dependencies towards the end of the PI planning, because then we couldn't commit on our draft plans. Once we have our draft plans ready, the most important view for a PI planning is the program board, where the teams come together, talk about their draft plans with management. Now, this is where you see the features. Again, it's an issue type in Jira, nothing special, visualized in a manner that SAFe would like you to have. A program board, one swim lane per team, and you see the features when they should be delivered, taking the actual planning status of the teams into account. What you also see is the significant dependencies. They're really important in SAFe, while the team ones are a bit more operational, where the teams have to say in which order they plan their work. These dependencies that you see here, they're called significant because they might risk the delivery of feature whatsoever. For example, there seems to be a bug that's really important. If that doesn't get fixed, it might risk the delivery of this feature up here. So when there's teamwork planned and you link it as significant dependency, you see it in this board. And what you can also visualize is when you have external dependencies, wherever that might be in your Jira, of course. For example, if there's a supplier involved, they need to deliver something here. If that doesn't get delivered, you cannot deliver this feature. Or you have a shared service, such as marketing. And in this case, it's the other way around. They need something in order to be able to do this teaser trailer here. They need something from the delivery of that feature. So that's the program board. For the Jira people among you, one quick information, you can create new PIs right here when you have the permissions. And when you do that, you tell it that PI of how many sprints it consists. And if I plan all this and click confirm, it doesn't only create the PI, but it also creates all the sprints for all the teams automatically. So again, things are made quite easy. We also have a roadmap view in Agile Hive. It's more or less an MVP at the moment, as Agile Hive is still quite a young product where we built up on top of that. As a product manager, for example, you have the same possibility to drag and drop your features into the timeline, play around with it and see how it might work out for PI by PI. And we built on top of that, so you see progress, you have dependencies already in the roadmap view, and whether there has been teamwork planned later than your planned date, for example, and stuff like that. And we'll bring all of that functionality up to the portfolio level, so you can plan your large initiatives, drag and drop features onto that. They get linked automatically. So there's a whole lot more to come. But let me give you a quick view into the portfolio. We have a basic report that is aggregated from team through program, if it's their large solution, all the way up to the portfolio, so you can track the progress. You also have a portfolio Kanban, which, since we talk about leadership and management here, is usually the playground for the portfolio management, where they do their lean portfolio management and want to create flow and keep track of their portfolio epics. Since they cost a lot of time and money, usually you want to make sure, if you really want to do them. As an example, you can put in some information, including the latest shortest job first, since that's really important in the context of leadership. You give the execution idea of how important things are that can be done by the latest, shortest job first information that you can put in here. So if you have any information already, your estimates can be put in here. You create that Jira issue. It's a portfolio epic. Now, when I open this up, it ends up in the funnel status. And when I open this up, it automatically creates the latest job first calculation and a link to a Confluence if you have Confluence in place. So there's a strong interaction in Agile Hive between Jira and Confluence. And now you can use Confluence to document stuff and to collaborate on the content of, for example, this epic documentation for its hypothesis statement, the latest, shortest job first information, the lean business case. All of that will now follow the Jira ticket along, and you have a representation where you really can talk things over and document things. And I think I would leave it there. I just really wanted to let you know that transparency throughout all of the levels is really important when it comes to Agile leadership in the Scaled Agile environment. I hope I could show you how two quite different tools do this and make it happen, to have this transparency and to foster alignment, which is, after all, the most important value in this Scaled Agile environment. If there's any questions from your side, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions? We got time.
No questions.
I'm sure there are some, they will come. But so if you want to get hold of you, of course, you can reach out to me and we will put you in touch. Peter, can you just also share your direct contact details so that's easy for people to reach out to you?
You should have my email in the chat. I would also like to share, since there's a few minutes left, what I've talked about before, the Scaling Agile Society, which I wear this t-shirt of today. Yeah. It's an initiative by Seibert Media, because what we notice when organizations transform and need to scale their Agile development, they usually come to us as a tool vendor quite late in the process. They develop their processes and their methods, and it seems that you really want to achieve alignment between strategy and execution, but there quite often does not seem to be an alignment of methodology and tooling at the same time. We would really like to put that into focus so you can work together or keep both things in mind, since you need good tooling that works well together with your methodology, and there might be different tools and you keep them both on the same level, because if you don't, that might hinder your transformation, which you really don't want to do. So the Scaling Agile Society is an initiative that we have created, and what we offer is for the best of the customers, for the organizations that are transforming, to work closely together with the methodology experts like Valued Light. You don't have to explain things over and over again, but you can explain them once, and they're taken into account from the experts of tooling as well as the methodology, and we would like to work together. So that's just an idea that we would like to present here. When you use this website, or when you take a look at this website, there's also means of getting in touch with us to see what it's all about. I just posted this short link.
If you can post it to everyone and let others to see it. Thank you. I know there was a lot to cover, but you managed to cover it. And of course, there's a lot more detail that we need to do.
One last link I just posted. If you want to book a chat with me, that link you can use. It looks right into my calendar. Have a good conference. Thank you very much for having me, and have a great time.
Thank you very much, Peter. Bye-bye for now.